With Uganda at its transition or at its crossroad, there are various ways through which people are contesting power. And one of those is through social movements. But first, what is a social movement and what are the different stages of a social movement? You've heard of the People Power Movement. You've heard of the PLU. You've heard of the PFF. You've heard of the National Resistance Movement. What are the stages? At the beginning of a social movement, as you can see on the screen, we have a stage called the emergence. So there are different people who are facing the same issue, and they choose to say, oh, you people, this issue is affecting all of us. Let's meet and see what we can do about it. So at the beginning of stage, there is collective discontent over a certain perceived social issue and governance issue, and people come up to say there is a problem here that is happening. And I'm going to be showing you, for example, what was the issue which united people to start the National Resistance Movement, or to start the People Power Movement, or to start the PLU movement that is currently at the second stage. In the second stage, we go to what they call coalescence. So now that people have said, oh my goodness, we are all facing the same social issue, they start to have meetups. That's where you start to see things like protests. That's where you start to see things like demonstrations. That's where you start to see things like lobbying. And in this stage, there's increased media coverage for this issue. Remember, people have not yet formed any institutional structures. At this stage, certain leaders start to emerge. That's why you hear Bobby Wine is a leader of this movement. That's why you hear Museveni is a leader of this movement. That's why you start to hear things like Baram Vargahari is a leader of this movement, or General Muhoozi Kainerugaba is the leader of this movement. So certain leaders start to emerge in this movement that is leaderless. After that, what happens? After that, what happens is what they call the bureaucratization stage. Here, the movement starts to create bureaucracies. So it's no longer leaderless. Those leaders start to create hierarchies and bureaucracies. And that's why you hear things like the National Unity Platform, which is the political wing of the People Power Movement. That's why you start to hear things like the National Resistance Movement organization, which now becomes the political wing of the movement. That's why you start to hear things like Patriotic League of Uganda as a civic agency to promote the objectives of the general MK movement that is at the moment happening. Now, let's go to the last stage, as you can see on the screen. And I'm going to be walking you through movement at a time, such as you understand how they evolved from all these stages of emergence, coalescence, bureaucratization, and the final one being decline. So how do social movements come to the last stage? One, a social movement can achieve its objective. Meaning, if it achieves this objective, the movement has declined. Decline in the sense that it has succeeded. Now, the second way is through co-optation. For example, you can hear people who, they started a movement, then as a result, the oppressor swallowed them. They are like, oh, let's fight for our rights. And later on, they were either bought off or they were taken off the road by the very people that they were trying to oppress. So again, these were the four stages of a social movement. First, the emergence of a social movement. Secondly, coalescence. Thirdly, bureaucratization. And the last one being decline. Like and follow us on all our social media pages, because we are continuing with this series to show you the social movements that are happening in Uganda.